Welcome to the Let's Push at 70 podcast. Um, um, if you could introduce yourself a bit and your role, and yeah, that'd be great.
I am Lisa McCosh. I used to be Lisa Thompson, and I do know some British players when I was Lisa Thompson. I am the president of Underwater Hockey New Zealand now. I'm also treasurer for my local club as well.
That's,
So Alex reached out to email me, and here I am.
that's great. Um, First thing I wanted to ask you was your personal experience with Let's Push and how you found the sport initially. What was your kind of entry point into it?
So I was actually an unusual player in New Zealand. I started as an adult at university. So in New Zealand, most players start at school. But I was at boarding school, and I had a friend who played. Her whole family played. Her mum, her auntie, her granddad, and they all played. And she wanted me to play, but it was on the weekends, and I was at boarding school. So I would be going home some weekends, and so I couldn't commit to it, and I had no way to get to the pool. It was too far away. So when I got to university, I went along and started playing. But in my first year of uni, I had a part-time job. So I kind of started in second, third year by the time I actually kind of began playing actual underwater hockey, which is what we call it. We
Yeah,
definitely do not call it octopus over here.
cool. What was university sport for like for you in terms of underwater hockey?
Yeah, so I started in the university club, but there were only three of us that would turn up regularly. There were a handful of others around. And so that club pretty quickly shut down in terms of operating on its own, but we still had a university team. So there were two other clubs in the city that I was in at the time, Christchurch. And so the uni students were kind of spread in those two clubs, but we went to uni games, which is university games, for I think I went three times, but attendance was kind of dwindling even at that point. And I don't know when after I left uni, but it is no longer in university games, which is a real shame. But yeah, it was at the university games when I began, and it's when there's lots of different sporting codes that go along
Mm.
together. It's quite a big competition.
Um, I started to ask about. I was going to go on to actually. Okay, first, what has been your journey, kind of, from uni to now, kind of, because you're president now, it's a massive role, and kind of how, what was that kind of journey like for you?
Okay. So obviously I was a player at uni, but I was kind of playing at the level of the high school people because everyone started in high school. So I played in a Colts team where I was the oldest, and there were lots of younger players in that team with me. But it was really, really great competition. And then I'd go to training camps and things, but I started working, and then I moved over to Scotland, and then I came back and had my children. So three children, and so I've dipped in and out of underwater hockey. And I kind of stepped into the administration side. I used to happily go along, and someone else would merrily organise everything, and I didn't even really think about how that all worked. Quite happily just turned up. But after I had my children, there was a gap. They needed a treasurer, and I'm an accountant, so I came onto the Underwater Hockey New Zealand executive in 2017 as the treasurer, and then
Mm.
just over a year ago, I stepped up into the president role. So
Cool.
that's how it came to be.
Um, in terms of that kind of time, how do you feel like kind of the perception, both because you've been in Scotland as well, so which is a really interesting kind of comparison to make. How do you think kind of views of underwater hockey have changed over that time? Because obviously in New
In that
Zealand,
time.
it's a whole different thing, but I think I find it's constantly changing. I wonder if you kind of seen that from that kind of from such a high role in the sport as well.
Um, I don't know if it's changed. It's hard when you're in it
Mm.
because everyone around you knows that you play it, and so then your friends who don't play it have heard of it. But generally, ever since I started, and even now when I meet new people, they generally go, "Oh, underwater hockey, that's a thing. How do you play that?" So the reaction hasn't really changed in that time. Even though we try to promote, we try to get in the news if we perform well on the world stage and things. It's quite hard to get news stories picked up in the media. And we self-promote a bit, but generally we're promoting to people that are already playing. So, it's something we're always working on is the promotion of the sport, and we're always trying to grow the sport. And I think in schools, which is what I'm not heavily involved in, but schools is probably the area where people know about it more because of the school, and then the school has it, and so it's a sport, and so the families at the school would hear about it. But it's not widely out there here, and I haven't felt a huge change since I was younger either.
Okay, cool. I find the idea that New Zealand has kind of school octopus so fascinating because I know people that have kind of played in a local club from like a young age, kind of from that capacity. But the idea that their school competitions and that engagement is just fascinating. But how does that work? Like, kind of, how did that come about? Because it's been going it's for several decades now that it's been an established thing, right? So, anything more you can say about that generally is just because this isn't this is kind of a unique thing to you guys. It's really cool.
Yeah, I obviously didn't play at schools, but I have been told always, ever since I started, how strong it was in the school system here. And I popped into, I think it might have been the Central Schools competition, and it was so massive. Like your mind is just blown at how huge these competitions are. And I went to the secondary schools nationals competition last year, and there were hundreds of kids. And this is only the top teams that have qualified to get into the schools nationals tournament, and there's hundreds of them. Which is so great to see. And I think to get it started, it really probably took. It was a long time ago, before my time, but it's just the passion of a few individuals that give it a go and build it, and have patience and keep working at it and build it. So I believe that it was Jill Ford in Wellington that cracked it off, and then Tristan Reynard, who is in the CMS Commission, so it might be a name that you might know. He took over and has done a lot for the Wellington schools. And then in Auckland, a lady called Jeanette Bell got it going up there, so that then the Wellington schools had someone to compete against. Meanwhile, there was a lady called Alex Coombs King in Nelson that got the school system going there. So I think it just takes some passionate individuals that are prepared to really keep going and keep going and keep going to get it started. And I suspect you probably start with one school and get it embedded in that school, so that then the next year you've got more players that start, so that when those players roll into senior, there's a perpetual roll of students. You're not having to start again. And then once you've got one school going, then you get another school going. But it took the passion of individuals to get it going. They're all recognised by Underwater Hockey New Zealand. They're in our Hall of Fame as life members for their services to the sport.
That's really cool. I love it. And so I feel like, of course, having played from a young age, I feel like that helps kind of players develop that kind of longer term skill when it gets into the competitive side of things, like you said, at kind of uni and beyond that. New Zealand is incredibly competitive on the world stage. You guys are dominating every year. You know, it's incredibly impressive. And so what I was going to ask next was kind of what, in terms of training and kind of the way you approach, both from a management level, kind of looking down, but also on like kind of what's the term for it? Like a ground level approach of the training and the individual stuff. Big question, but what do you think it is that makes New Zealand kind of different in that? Kind of what are you thinking about that's allowing for such success? And it's a big question, but it's a
big question.
Yeah.
I think probably the start of it is that strong school base, and then when they start the development camps for the age group for the Worlds, they're huge squads. there's huge squads. So you go through schools, and then you might be selected to go and play at our regionals competition. So you might represent your region at the regionals competition, and then from there you go into the to the development squads to go to the age group world teams. But they're huge, and of course when there's a lot of competition, you're always going to be pushed harder to get better. And there's a real sense of camaraderie. There's a good support system around them, and they're encouraged to get fit. But it's at an age-appropriate level. So the under 18, under 19 squads have different training programs that are more suitable to youth, essentially, and then it builds into more strength-based programs and things as they get to under 24s and elites. And there's some quite specific programs that they obviously use, and so that builds up, and so then you have the very strong players in the age groups, and then that sets up your elite. So all the while you have people that don't continue the sport, and so the squads do get smaller as you go through, but they are the strongest players that really that we can produce, that have come through that system, I guess. We're always working on ways to support people that haven't made that selection process to know that it's not that long until the next selection, and that they still have lots to offer the sport, and to try to support them through those kind of situations.
That's good. You mentioned briefly about kind of different kind of training and gym training and how that works. And is there anything you could share with us about kind of how you approach that, or what kind of you're prioritizing? Because it's not often that there's kind of dedicated training for underwater hockey that we know about here. So that's kind of an interesting thing. There's kind of more move towards strength training as well in the under 24s. Sorry, details, but yeah, I don't know anything about that.
I'm not sure I'm allowed to share how we.
Maybe a bit cheeky of me, I realise, but yeah. The secrets.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not in the age group, so I don't see their gym programs. I know that when I meet, but like obviously they have to think about what a younger body is able to do as well. So and what's healthy for them to do and achieve. But obviously, when you're doing gym work, you think about the movements in underwater hockey, and you want to have a lot of mobility. You want to have a lot of power moves. So it's quite dynamic exercises sometimes, combination moves. Yeah.
That's great. A more general question. What do you think makes, in terms of individuals, in New Zealand or anywhere in the world, what do you think it is that makes a top-notch underwater hockey player in terms of attitude or skills, or even people that you've interacted with? You think that's the, what's making that for them, in any way you want to interpret that, but yeah, that's great.
I think they normally have a real focus to succeed in the sport. They want to be the best that they can be, and so some players, in order to do that, might really geek out on skills. I know that the Hockings used to post videos, Jake and Jesse Hocking, and Ali probably did too, used to post videos where they were always doing skill work, always doing flicks, flicking over chairs, flicking here, flicking there, and just always thinking about how they can do it. And so there's players that really love to just keep going and seeing exactly how much they can do with their skill work and things. I know that the day after Worlds last year, when everybody was feeling pretty wrecked, half a dozen players were in the pool at the hotel playing hockey golf or something, flicking the puck onto the side of the hotel pool for hours, when everybody else is pretty knackered from 2 weeks of playing underwater hockey. But they just have a real love for the sport, and I think it takes passion to give up a lot of other things in your life to focus on the training that's required to become a top athlete.
That's great. Kind of leading on from that, is there anyone that you've worked with, as an athlete, or people you spoke with earlier, anyone really, that kind of stood out as a player or individual, and what was their story, and kind of how it kind of changed the way you thought about the sport, or anything like that.
Uh, there's so many. We have so many amazing people. I've had so many amazing experiences in 20 years of playing, and now 7 years of administration. I still play, but in my administration as well. One of my earliest memories was when I first started, and because I was unusual, when people saw a girl who was 22 years old, they would expect her to have been playing for 5 to 7 years already,
Yeah.
and to have skills and to be good at this. I had no idea. I didn't know what the refs calls were. I did not know how to play, and so I was really like a like a 10-year old, but or a 12-year old, but people didn't expect that. And I went to a tournament. There was a team that was short of some players, and I said, oh well, like I've just started playing. I've been going to the pool for 6 months, and I didn't know it at the time, but that was the top tournament in New Zealand. But they needed someone else, so I merrily went along to this tournament. And it was Zoe Firth was the captain, and she's been in the elite women's teams many times, and she was the player coach of my masters women's team at Worlds last year as well. This was back when she was at uni and I was at uni, and I just remember I must have been very frustrating to play with because I didn't know how to play, and these people had all been to age group Worlds, and I just remember being told, one thing to work on, try this, and then, another thing to work on, just never, you need to change everything, you need to learn how to play the whole sport being dumped on me. Just, if you try to work on this, that would be great. And it was realistic and kind, and it's one of my earliest memories of the sport. So that was with Zoe. Administratively, in the last 7 years, I've worked a lot with Tristan Reynard and Tony Colhoun, both of whom have positions in CMAS now. And I have great respect for all that they've done for the sport. It's incredible the manpower that they've put in on a volunteer basis to the sport. And they're kind of my mentors, my role models, stepping into this president role. They've been working tirelessly for the sport for 1 decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, like so long. Tristan was coaching when I first started. He's given a lot to the sport. So I worked a lot with him. And then I just got this today. I thought maybe I'd show you it. Let me find it. It looks so great. Just got to find it. And then there's Benson.
Yeah.
So there's an article in a dive magazine. That's terrible, isn't it? You can't see it at all.
Oh no.
But can you?
Yeah.
Oh, you can't. Anyway, there's a dive magazine.
Cool.
And we got two double page spreads in it. I don't know how to make it, but there's Benson there. Is it all blurry?
Tiny bit. I think. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in focus there.
Yeah.
So it's like a double page spread on Benson, and all that he's done for the sport and what he enjoys about it and loves about it, and how he's involved in other underwater activities as well. He does, I think it's spearfishing, and he's a scuba diver and stuff. So yeah, he was in the Dive magazine over summer. So it was really cool promotion for our sport in New Zealand.
Cool. I think we've been working a lot with just on a very small scale, obviously with the uni, but just trying to work out how to have that conversation about what underwater hockey is and how great it is, and trying to show people that there's kind of a whole world out there that just that they aren't aware of, that it's really great, but that most people aren't getting. And so when I know it's kind of different now because it's such a kind of different role, but when you're having the conversation with someone for the millionth time about what underwater hockey is, and what is it to you that makes it such a fun and engaging sport to play? Like, what's the pitch for you after all these years?
After all these years, I mean, I just love it. And so when I talk to people, you just love it. It's just this passion that you have. I love playing it. I love getting in the water. It's great stress relief. Being in the water, it can be any body shape is welcome to play. There's no bias about age. Parents play with children. and my son has just jumped in our pool for the last month, and every other day now, Mum, will you come and play with me? Mum, will you come and play with me? And he's 11, and now the 9 and 6 year olds want to get in, and we don't have 9 and 6 year olds play, but they're jumping in our pool and grabbing all my gear, and they want to play with me. And so I love it. I love the positivity that's in our community that we have in New Zealand, and the love that so many people have for the sport. Yeah, it's hard to plug underwater hockey to people who haven't seen it before. People either get in and love it, or they don't. Generally, from my experience, they tend to need to be water babies. They need to be someone who's always loved swimming, and as a child always wanted to win the starfish competition and hold their breath, and enjoyed being in the water in that way. Or swimmers who got bored with swimming up and down and up and down and up and down, and wanted to make it a game where you're not thinking about fitness, you're just thinking about the game. But yeah, people either love it straight away, I think, generally. But we've tried a couple of new things in my local club. We've got a very small club, and we tried a couple of different promotion things, and we found that when you have single have a go days, people come along and they say, "Oh, that's very nice," and then they kind of depart. It's helps if you run a small series. So if you run like a 6 week or an 8 week, and then the people that come tend to have a little bit of buy-in, even if it's only 10 or 20 bucks to buy in, then they paid $10 or $20, and so then they'll come to the 6 weeks or the 8 weeks that they signed up to, and by the end of that time, they have more of a feel for it. Because when you start people, do you find that you spend 1 or 2 sessions playing with masks that don't fit their face and the snorkel doesn't work, and it can take 1 or 2 sessions to get people past that to where they actually get to see the sport. So
Wait,
I think that helps.
That's fascinating. So, if I'm getting this right, so you have, rather than a single give it a go, so you're paying a tiny bit, or like however much, the 10, 20 or it was, to have this 4, 6, 8 sessions. So it's kind of more like like a mini course more. I like that. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and I think they have that at Wellington. I don't live in Wellington, but they have mini hockey, and I suspect it's something similar. But I think it'll be for the younger ones to get started. But I think that the way they do it, and Wellington has got a huge schools base. They've got a great volunteer base running. They've got a great schools system, and I think that's how it's done. So you doing one-off have a go days, like those are beneficial as well. But I think that if you get a little bit of buy-in, then you're better. So do you guys just run single have a go days?
So at the start of the year, when we have the freshers intake of all new students, we kind of have like 1 or 2 give it a go sessions, and we have like tons of people come through, and obviously some people just we found that we had about 50 or so people over 2 days this year, and from that we found about 10, 15 people who just absolutely loved it, and they're great, and they're amazing, and I love them. But yeah, it's just kind of I think I've been talking to Joe Pitchforth, who runs the Leeds Club, is just down the road from us, and she was saying about how I interviewed before, actually, yeah, just the first episode, but saying about how it takes about, for them, like 4 sessions for someone just to make that decision fully and get over like the kit or the not the chaos of it, but the environment, everything. Just to
it is chaos. The chaos of it. Absolutely. Yeah. Just own it. It is the chaos of it. Yeah. I'm pretty sure it was written in the magazine article. That was Benson's favourite part of the sport, was embracing the chaos of it.
Yeah. Yes, it's fascinating. I think I always meet swimmers, like you said, and people who've done lane swimming and kind of really intensely for years, and I'm trying to say to them, there's a better way than this. You could be doing this brilliant sport that has this community, and it's just different. But sometimes for them, swimming is, they've already found their passion with that, and it's difficult to make that shift. But for some people, like you said, they love the water, but just haven't found that sport with it. But there's people we want to meet. But so that's my favorite. Yeah, can we talk a bit more about Worlds and kind of international competition? Because of course, highest level we had the 21st World Championships last year. Kind of anything you can share about that, and kind of the way it works and how it's different at that highest level, and the mindset with that. If you could speak a bit more about that, would be really cool.
That was my first Worlds.
Wow.
I was not in the elite teams, so I went in the Masters women's team, and it was my first Worlds to attend. Uh, and I suspect that that is a different mindset again to the elites.
Mm.
Um, so the elites have different training regimes. They have appointed coaches and managers, whereas we had player coaches and kind of self-managing. Just because Masters underwater hockey in New Zealand is just beginning to kick off again. I think
Mm.
but in the past we've had some Masters teams, but I think it had been 20 years since we had a New Zealand women's Masters team. So it was just kicking it off again. So we're just kind of starting that. But I know that the elite teams, especially the elite men, I know that they did a lot of mental skills around going to Worlds, because there's a lot of pressure when you're at Worlds. And in the past, we've had sports psychologists to help the teams, to help with the mental pressure of going to a Worlds. It is a different kind of pressure. Just if you let it kind of take over and think about it too much. I know that in my first game, I did, just in the first couple of minutes, I did a couple of quick subs because my heart was racing so much. I'm used to holding my breath, obviously, for a long time, but my heart was racing too much. So I did a couple of quick subs, and then I calmed down, and that didn't happen again. But it is a different kind of pressure.
Mm.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. Um, yeah, I mean, kind of competing at that level is it's just insane. I can't imagine kind of what the how intense it is in a match as well. That's just it's inconceivable, but I love that. Um, but yeah, I don't think I have many more. I think that's all my questions. But I'm trying to think what else would be cool to talk about. Um, yeah, I've taken a personal interest in trying to kind of work out how kind of we can break down these kind of objections people have to playing Octopus with the kit, all this stuff. It's but kind of understanding kind of how different countries play has been fascinating. I don't think I missed anything.
I have some questions for you.
Go on, I'm excited.
How big is your club?
We have about 15 of us, but we have a club in town that we collaborate with, which is for non-students, and there's about kind of 10 or so of them. Sometimes we kind of work together with that. But of course, I'm hoping we'll grow massively in size in the next year or so.
And that's in York City.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. What day of the week do you play?
we play Monday and Tuesday, 9 to 10 p.m. at York Sport Village.
Okay,
We'll
good.
play-
I might be passing through there this year.
that'd be really really cool. I'd love that.
Oh yeah, 9 o'clock at night. I'm
Yeah,
taking my 3 kids in tow. It's quite late, but we'll see.
cool.
My
Um,
husband plays as well, so
yeah,
we either have to take turns or the kids have to all be dragged along.
yeah.
But we'll see. Might send you an email about that.
Yes, please.
And so, what kit do you have? Um, do you play at the same pool as that other club, and so you can use their gear, or do you have to have your own gear because you've got a uni pool or something?
So we're fortunate enough to get funding from the uni for kit generally. We've kind of collected kit over the years, and we have that for us, and we kind of replenish that kind of when we can. And then occasionally, when we have our fresher session, when there's more people, there's like 30 plus per session, we might have to, borrow a kit from town with their, always they're lovely people. I love them, and they're always supportive of us, and they've been great. But we try to have our own kit. We just got a whole load more. Trying to make sure that kind of when people come in, they've always got kind of the best kit they can really. But yeah, I don't know.
When you have such a big group coming in,
Mm.
do you think that there's such a thing as too big? Like, can you break them down into people who are better in the water and people who aren't? Like, ask them for their experience of things. I don't know, just so that there can be slightly less of them. Or do you have
Yeah,
heaps and heaps? Like, are there plenty of you that go along to help and coach, and so it works out okay?
I think we try to get a lot of existing players to come along kind of in these sessions, because then it kind of get more kind of one-to-one, because I know for me that if I went along as like a new person and there was a moment where there was something wrong with my kit, or I wasn't sure what to do, and there wasn't someone obviously I could ask about it, that would just completely knock me out. I wouldn't want to do it, right? So when we have our when we're going to do that again in coming months, we're just going to try and get as many of our assistant players to come along and work, and try and make it as not confusing as possible. But we cap it out at about like 25. I don't know what you would say is like a max amount for a session like that, because even like then we have 2 matches going, but you're right, it's tough to kind of get that balance right. But yeah, I don't know.
I've never had that many to have a go. I've never had that many turn up. We had quite a few sign up for the last mini series that we did, and we looked at the numbers and we decided it was high school students that we were aiming for in that particular have a go. So it was not adults. And we ended up looking at them and decided to break them up into intermediate. So that was kind of 11, 12-year-olds and putting them together. And then high school students, so 13 to 17-year-olds, and putting them together, because the physical difference between the 15, 16, 17-year-olds and their little 11, 12-year-olds, we thought that would just be too much. And we wanted to break them up anyway. We had the amount of kit that we had. Remembering that I'm at one of the smallest clubs that we have in New Zealand. And so we broke them up into 2. And I think for us that was quite good, because it gave the little ones a better chance of getting in there and having a go. The big kids would have just taken it and swum off into the sunset had we put them in at the same time. But at university, you don't have that distinction. The only distinction that I could think of would be people who are better in the water and people who are less comfortable in the water.
Yeah. You always interact with people. I think what was I going to say? Yes. I think that's really great, because I think that some people go in with kind of high expectations in it, especially the kind of the start of the year. I'm sure you've experienced this with uni. There's kind of this is almost feral desire to try stuff, especially with first years, and they're so into it and they're so wanted. It's fantastic, and sometimes they kind of overestimate. Not that even their swimming skill, but sometimes it was always the diving and being under the water. I found like that was an issue sometimes, and so the range of different types of skills is just huge. I found that really interesting.
We had to break them up within our groups as well, to people who knew how to snorkel, because remembering this is younger people that we were dealing with in that one, was people who knew how to snorkel and people who didn't know how to snorkel. So the first session is how to snorkel. But at university, I remember there were people that didn't know how to snorkel either, and there were people that would freak out at this whole idea of breathing underwater, because they were breathing through the snorkel. And I mean, there's plenty of people that don't know how to do that. So it's a really good skill for them to have anyway. But it's a big gap, because the people that know how to do it, there's just some people that can naturally get right down to the bottom of the pool right from the start, aren't there? Yeah.
I'm missing water babies. I like that. That was pretty cute. It's great. Do you have any more questions? That's it.
No, but I might email you about when I'm coming to York.
Was that like an event or just kind of general?
No, we're taking the kids on a trip. So we've got family. We've got family, and I lived in Scotland, so we're going to visit Tim and Libby, Dale, and the old crew up there that I used to play with. And I obviously worked up there and have old work friends there. So we're going to go and stay there for 10 days. And then my husband has family in Wales. So we're going to stay in Wales for a period of time as well. Yeah. Absolutely. And we'll see. Yeah. He played in London, so he knows a few players there as well. So I think he's lined up for us to go and stay with Alistair and Rachel Hickey as well while we're down there. And we might see Henry and Steph, hopefully. But yeah, we'll see.
That's really great. Come by. It'd be really, really, really cool. I'd like that. We do a little match. That'd be really cool. That'd be really sweet. I think that's everything I've got.
Okay, awesome. Well, in case people around you don't say it, thank you for administering the sport over there. It takes a lot of effort,
Cheers. We'll get there. It's gonna be great. Yeah. Uh, I don't know if I want to shout anyone out. But the people over here, the whole team's fantastic. And I'm so thankful for kind of what kind of UK underwater hockey's got going on. It's really really cool. I think, and everyone around me with it is so ambitious and so passionate, and I'm just so excited to see where it can go and do something a bit more like you guys. It's really cool. Um,
Oh, that's awesome.
it's really sweet.
Well, good luck.
Thank you. Good luck to you guys too. Thank you.